Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we're going to do my first look for round 7 in World Cup Fantasy. So let's get started. So the first thing that we're going to take a look at in this video is the fixtures for round 7. So this round is going to be the semi-finals of the World Cup, and as I'm filming this we have got one of the fixtures confirmed. So this is that France are going to be playing Spain, and then I have also got the projected goals and the clean sheet odds for this fixture, and these have come from FPL Joe's website, so I will leave a link to that down in the description. For the projected goals, we've got France with 1.55, and then Spain have got 1.34 projected goals. And then for the clean sheet odds, France have got a 27% chance of keeping a clean sheet, and Spain just a 22% chance of a clean sheet. So as you can see in this fixture, we are definitely looking at the games in the semi-finals being much tighter games and games that could really go either way. So since the semi-finals are probably going to be much tighter games and it's going to be a lot harder to know who's going to win the game, I think the best way to go into this round is going to be by picking players from either side. So in this France-Spain fixture, I think you should pick a good mix of France players and Spain players, because I think based on those odds, really either team could win it. Obviously, they slightly favour France, but it's really not by much. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at some of my favourite players from both of these teams, and then I think you could pick a mix of them. So we'll start by looking at France, and we'll start with looking at their goalkeepers and their defenders. So the option we've got is Maignan in goal, and then for the defenders, it's Upamecano, Digne, Koundé and Saliba are the options you can pick from. I think for safe options, Maignan, Upamecano and Koundé should start every game, and I think they offer good value for their price. Saliba should also start every game, but I'm not sure if he is worth picking at the moment because he doesn't really have any attacking threat. I think Digne, if you want to go for the most attacking player, that is probably him, but he is still probably a slight minutes risk. So if you're happy going for a riskier player, then I would go from him. If not, it's probably Upamecano to pick. And then with the attackers, the best three options are Mbappe, Dembele and Elise, and I would probably look at having all three of these in your team going into the semi-finals. If you can only pick two of them, I would pick Mbappe and Dembele, as Elise seems to be getting less involved in the final product of the goals recently. The assists and the goals, it seems to be more like the pre-assist pass that he's been more involved in recently. So if you need to avoid one of them, then it would probably be him. And then now moving into Spain, starting with their defenders and goalkeepers. So you can pick Cucurella, Laporte, Kebasi, Simon or Porro are the options. Cucurella, Laporte, Kebasi and Simon should all be safe options. They should all start. I would probably pick Cucurella as he is only 5.1 million and he is really attacking, so he's probably the best one to go for. And then if you want a second, it's probably Kebasi as he is only 5 million. And then with Porro, he probably will start, but there is a chance that he could be rotated. He will offer more attacking threat than Kebasi will, so you could maybe pick him as a second Spain defender, but I wouldn't be picking him over Cucurella. I'd definitely pick Cucurella ahead of Pedro Porro. And then for the attackers, we've got Oyarzabal, Baena, Olmo, Merino and Yamal are the highest scoring attackers from Spain. I think Oyarzabal and Yamal look like safe options to pick that will probably start. Olmo probably falls into that category as well. And then Baena and Merino are the ones that are more minutes risk. Baena was unfortunately subbed off before the 60-minute mark yesterday in the Spain game. And then Merino keeps coming on towards the end, but he recently does keep scoring once he comes on towards the end. So Merino could maybe be a player you pick if he has done enough to earn himself a place in the starting 11 and then you think he's going to do well then. Or if you're not too bothered about him not starting and you think that him scoring off the bench is going to be something that continues for the last couple matches in this World Cup, then you could pick him for that reason as well. So when I'm filming this video, I'm filming this on Saturday evening, so we haven't had the England against Norway game yet, or the Argentina against Switzerland game yet, but once this video is uploaded, we will have the results for those games, and then we will know who is playing in the second semi-final. But because I'm filming this beforehand, I can't really talk about just the teams that have won because I don't know who that is yet. So what I've decided to do is I've picked out my favourite players from England, Norway, Argentina and Switzerland, and then once this video is up, you can kind of just ignore the parts that are about the teams that have been knocked out and just take note of the players that have actually qualified. So we'll start off with England and their defensive options. So the highest scoring England defensive options are Konsa, Pickford, Guéhi, Spence and O'Reilly. I think Konsa, Pickford and O'Reilly should definitely be starting all of England's remaining games in this World Cup. Guéhi should as well, as long as he isn't injured. He is currently dealing with a bit of a hamstring issue. I think it looks like he should be okay for the Norway game, but I think he is a player that they are going to have to be careful with. And then Spence, it's also going to depend on the situation at right back, whether Reece James is back or not, as to whether Spence gets good minutes. So I would probably lean towards ignoring Spence. The picks that I would be going for would be Pickford and O'Reilly. And then for the England attackers, it's Kane and Bellingham that stand out to me as the most nailed options, that are the good picks to go for. And if England do win against Norway tonight, you will know if they have when you're watching this. So if they have, then I would be looking to have both of these players in your team going into the semi-finals. But then if Norway have beaten England by the time you're watching this, then I've got 4 options from Norway that I like that you could consider putting into your team for the semi-finals. What would be good if Norway have qualified is they do have some cheaper options, especially defensively, that could help with you affording some of the more expensive players from France, Spain and possibly Argentina. So you could look to have Wolfie as a cheap defender who is very attacking. You could have Nyland in goal at just 4.2 million. And then I think the attackers that you would be looking to go for from Norway would be Haaland and Odegaard. I think, like Kane and Bellingham, these two stand out as the clear best options to me. And then finally, looking at the Argentina or Switzerland options, depending on who has qualified. From Argentina, defensively, we've got Martinez, the defender, Medina, Romero, Martinez the goalkeeper, Molina and Tagliafico are the highest scoring players from Argentina. So I think Martinez, both Martinez's, the defender and the goalkeeper, Romero and Molina should all be nailed to start, and they're the ones that I would be looking to choose from. With Medina and Tagliafico, it's still a little bit up in the air who's actually got the starting place in the team, because at first we did think it was going to be Tagliafico, but he got injured, so Medina was playing, and then Medina got injured as Tagliafico was returning from injury, so he came back in. And then now with them, I think both being fit, we're still not 100% sure who is going to start. So for that reason, I would probably ignore picking Medina or Tagliafico, and I would go for Molina if you need someone on the cheaper side, or Martinez, the defender. And then the highest scoring Argentina attackers are Messi, McAllister, Lautaro Martinez, another Martinez just to keep confusing things, and then Enzo Fernandez. So I think Messi, McAllister and Enzo Fernandez are all options that should start every game, so you can pick them. Messi, I think if Argentina qualify and you don't have him, get him in your team. And then I would look to have at least one of McAllister or Enzo Fernandez in your team. I think Enzo Fernandez is probably the option that I do prefer. But he is a little bit more expensive, so if you can't afford him, then McAllister should be fine as well. Lautaro Martinez is probably a player that I would avoid, as he was starting whilst Alvarez was recovering from a bit of an injury, and now he is back from injury. I think it's more likely that Alvarez starts. But then if Switzerland have beaten Argentina, then the Switzerland defensive options are Rodriguez, Kobel, Akanji and Elvedi. I think all of these options should be nailed on to start and play all of the minutes. But the one that I would probably look to go for based on his price is Elvedi, as he's quite cheap. And like I said when speaking about Norway defenders, I think if one of Switzerland or Norway do qualify, that's really going to help you being able to afford more of the expensive players from France and Spain. So I would look to have Elvedi. And then from the Switzerland attackers, you've got Manzambi, Embolo, Vargas and Xhaka are the 4 highest scoring players. And I think my favourite to go for would be Manzambi, but he is currently out with an injury and we still don't know if he would be back for a semi-final for Switzerland or not. So if he is, then I would look to pick him. But if not, you're probably looking more towards one of Vargas or Xhaka. Or if you have a forward spot open up due to one of your forwards getting knocked out in this round, then you could pick Embolo, and that would also be a way of being able to spend more money elsewhere. For example, if you've got Haaland and he gets knocked out, or Kane and he's been knocked out, then selling one of them to Embolo would free up a little bit of money. And that could also be the case, of course, if Argentina get knocked out and you've got Messi, then that would obviously mean that Switzerland are through, so you could do Messi to Embolo. Okay, and that is everything for my first look for round 7 in World Cup Fantasy. If you liked the video and found it useful, please give it a like and don't forget to subscribe to my channel as well, as we are now trying to achieve 200 subscribers by the game week 1 deadline for FPL. My next video will be my team selection for round 7 in World Cup Fantasy, and that will be coming out on Tuesday, as that is when the deadline is and when the semi-finals start. So hopefully I will see you all for that video. Bye!